Welcome back to Kaijuly, and today we are going to get up and get the Blu-ray because I forgot to grab it beforehand. Let's try this again. This time, today, we're looking at Kong Skull Island from 2017. The second installment in the MonsterVerse, where we set up Godzilla vs. Kong. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. So, this movie tells about a group of military people and scientists sent to Skull Island to investigate the strangeness of it, like what's going down, and what they find is Kong and some other creatures called skull crawlers, and a World War II pilot who was shot down during shut down during World War II and survived all those years. I'm going to start off with my biggest problem with this film. It takes place in 1973. Why is that a problem? Well, if you're building a cinematic universe, you want all your films to take place within a connective time. Now, I'm not within a certain time frame, you know what I mean? Like, they can connect. I'm not saying that setting in 1973 is a bad thing, but you could have done something. Spoiler alert, there is no connection to this film in the next two films other than Kong and Skull Island. No characters or anything else show up. The character of Brooks shows up for one little scene portrayed by Joe Morton in Godzilla King of the Monsters. That's it. And to be honest, I didn't even know it was him until I looked it up on the Wikipedia for this movie, and it said he was in that film with Joe Morton, and I went, oh, that's who that character was supposed to be. No idea. Had no idea that it was him. And that's the problem with this MonsterVerse, and I'll get to it in a video I'm planning on doing some point later, but they have no connectivity between their films. Even when they have characters in future films, they're not used right, and I'll get to that. But this film was set in 1973, which means nothing that happens in this film really matters, other than introducing us to King Kong and setting up Godzilla King of the Monsters. And that's in the post-credit scene. Now, I'll admit, what we do get, the action with Kong is pretty good when he shows up and destroys a helicopter. Pretty cool. When he fights skull crawlers, that's really cool. You know, when he fights his octopus, that's cool. Everything with Kong is pretty good, and I like CGI is really good. There's this one scene though when he meets Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson's characters. It's a little iffy. It's a green screen thing like I did with the Star Wars, but you know, I don't know. To me, everything looked good. The cinematography was great. But who directed this thing? Jordan Vogt Roberts. Okay. The human characters. There were a few that I did sort of like. I liked Tom Hiddleston's performance. I thought he was alright. I liked John Goodman because he's John Goodman, but he's not in the film that long. I liked Shea Wiggum, his character in this film. I think it was alright. They do something kind of weird with his character where it looks like he's going to sacrifice himself to one of the skull crawlers by having a grenade. And he's like, come on, you son of a bitch. And then he gets whacked with the creature's tail and just explodes on a mountain. Why do we need a joke there? He was sacrificing himself. Serious. I liked Samuel L. Jackson as the eventual villain of this film. And some might say, you know, I've said before, in a monster movie, you don't need human villains. But I think from the beginning, they set up what was going to happen with this character. At the beginning of the film, the Vietnam War was over. We lost. Spoiler alert. It was a clusterfuck anyway. But, you can tell by the way Samuel L. Jackson's character, I forget his name. You can tell by how he acts that he's bored. When he gets the call that they're going to go into, they're going to have one more operation, one more op, he's excited. And when that chopper gets knocked down by this giant ape, that's when he decides, in the words of Samuel L. Jackson, as he would say, this motherfucker is going down. It's a PG-13 movie, so we can't really say it. And they did waste the one F word on, that you could use on Big Fucking Ant. So I don't know. But, it's not even said by Samuel Jackson. It's said by John C. Reilly. But anyway, John C. Reilly's okay too. I've been a big fan of him, but he's all right. He's a guy he's the pilot from World War II. He and a Japanese pilot both crashed there. They became allies, and the Japanese pilot died because of one of the skull crawlers. So he's been there on his own with the people of the island, and he's supposed to get home to his wife and his child, who's now older, of course. But, yeah, each my leg. Yes. But Samuel L. Jackson, from the beginning, it's his main thing. So once they crash, there's a character named Chapman, played by Toby Kebbell, with a southern accent for some reason. I don't know. His mission is, we gotta go find Chapman. Because we're not going to leave without him. Then they find out that Chapman is dead. So now his cover is blown. Because it wasn't about finding Chapman. It was about finding the weapons so that he can take down Kong. That's all it was. He didn't care about Chapman. Speaking of no character connectivity, there is a character they could have used. Chapman has a son named Billy. They mentioned him several times. They could have had Bill Chapman be a character in the future films, but they don't. Just saying. So when Samuel L. Jackson is revealed to be this big bad villain at the end, and he's gonna kill Godzilla, Kong, not you, gonna kill Kong here. That eventually he dies and they leave because those who's left, minus Shea Wiggum and a couple other soldiers. They leave, right? But I like the design of the skull crawlers. Like I said, I like how Kong looks. Samuel L. Jackson becoming a villain was okay. Now, the biggest problem with characters I have... Well, I wouldn't have a problem with this character if you had casted it right. That's Brie Larson's character, Weaver, right? Now, you casted... Now, the previous year before this, Brie Larson won an Academy Award. Best Actress. And all you have her do in this film is wear a tight shirt and point a camera. That's it. You could have gotten any other actress to do that role. But you got an Academy Award winning actress to do it. And all she does is wear a tight shirt and point a camera. And her story comes full circle when she gets wet in the climax and you see nipples. That's the basis of her story for this film. Is to at the end of the film get wet and her nipples poke out. That's it. Not that it's bad, but if you wanted to have an actress to just walk around with a tight shirt on and point a camera everywhere, why hire an Academy Award winning actress? What are you going to get from that? You don't get a performance out of her. She's smiling and stuff throughout the entire film, but there's not much of a performance from her. Because all they wanted her to do was wear a tight shirt and point a camera. It's not even really a love story between her and Tom Hiddleston. And do I need to mention the fact that they're going so far into trying to make this like Marvel, they're hiring a bunch of Marvel actors? Think about it. In Godzilla, you had Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen. And here you have Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, and Brie Larson. I don't think there's anyone in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Joe Morton was in the DCEU, but I don't know. And technically Julian Dennison was in a Marvel movie, but not MCU. That's in Godzilla vs. Kong. Alexander Skarsgård's father was in a couple of Avenger movies and Thor movies. Nothing like that. But yeah. The biggest thing that this movie does is in the post-credit scene. Because we end with them, leaving. You get a little film reel thing, 1970s film reel thing, showing that John C. Reilly comes home. He has his hot dog and his beer while watching baseball. And, he gets to meet his family again, and that's good. And then we get Kong going, the screen, and we cut the credits. The post-credit scene is the only thing that really sets up the future of the MonsterVerse. And they put it in the post-credit. They should have put it at the end of the film. So, we cut to an interrogation room. You got Hiddleston and Larson, and they're standing in there, and he's like, I get it. There's no island. I won't tell the Russians. And Brie Larson says, I promise you I will tell the Russians. She will tell the Russians. Okay, that's a little funny. And they're like, come on. We won't talk about the island. And then you got Brooks and the Chinese lady, I don't know her name. She's supposed to have a big role in this film, by the way, but was cut down. She has no lines. She's just carrying around a weapon. She's not a soldier. No lines from her. And he comes in and he goes, there's a whole lot more kings out there than just Kong. And they show slides of cave paintings of Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, Godzilla, and then one final one. Well, it's Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, and then one final one of Godzilla facing off against Ghidorah, and it ends. That was your setup. And that entire setup was more setup than the entire film. That little scene of setup was more setup than this entire film did. And not that it means anything, because by the time you get to Godzilla vs. Kong, Kong is really the only, or Godzilla 2014 is the only film you really need to watch. Because they don't take any characters from it, they don't mention anything that happened, nothing. They establish entirely new characters for that film. For the Kong side of things. As it stands, though, this is not a bad film. I've watched this movie 3 times. Every single time, I've enjoyed watching it. I think it's pretty good. I don't rate these in the Kaijuly, do I? No. But, yeah, I think it's a pretty good film. And I would recommend it. If you're watching through this MonsterVerse, watch all 4 of them. There's some connection in there. There's some setup. And I think the biggest problem is, so 2017, this movie was released. What was released in 2017? The god-awful version of Justice League. It was after Justice League that Warner Brothers decided that their DC movies would be more separated. So I think they decided the same thing for these. And other than the Godzilla connections, there is no connection for Kong in those films other than it's Kong. That's it. There's no other setup. So I think that was their decision. And that comes after this. Because there's great setup, but there's really no... I mean, there's post-credit scenes in Godzilla King of the Monsters, but to me, it does affect Godzilla vs. Kong, but to me, it doesn't really. Because what they showed isn't what we got, although they try to work it in there, but I'll get to that. Overall, though, I think it's a decent film, and I do recommend it. So, what are your thoughts on Kong Skull Island? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty. Not yet.